What's going on, team? Proof here, and the day is here. The boy is back. Ryzen Nova is back in Vanguard, and his skill is quite the doozy. And before I hop into it, this video is going to be decently long. There's going to be a lot to unpack. There's a chance I might miss a couple talking points here and there because there's a lot going on with Ryzen Nova in and of itself. So I'm gonna do my best to give you the high points for it, but definitely give me some comments down below of things that I might have missed along the way, and let's just have a discussion about it. But he's an amazing card in my mind, but I'll let you be the judge of it over the course of this video. And his skill says continuous on Vanguard. When this unit is placed by writing and would get imaginary gift force, get both force 1 and 2 instead of choosing force 1 or force 2. And then act on Vanguard, call Soul Blast 1, choose up to 2 of your grade 3 rear guards, and this unit gets all of their abilities until end of turn. And then this ability may only be used by a card with the same name once per turn. So wow, like my first thoughts about it was I was kind of speechless. As you can tell, I can barely talk about it now, even reading it back over again. But it's a very unique ability, only shared by a few other cards like Gear Groovy and Stride Gastile. And being able to become multiple Vanguards at one time is very, very unique and very strong and very interesting to boot, and it opens up a lot of play possibilities for spikes now, and I think that's really fun and really cool. And some other thoughts that I had was being able to have Ryzen back in premium, because this being the standard card means you can also play it in premium, potentially opens up the Ryzen support to be played again. However, unlike G-era Ryzen, which has the shot ability to call from your deck, V-era Ryzen here doesn't himself allow you to call in the battle phase or call during your turn to help enable charge, which was a lot of the support surrounding him was charge based. So it's going to be interesting to see if the other support can help him out in that regard, in terms of being able to enable some of the other past Stride support or Ryzen G-era support. However, he still does have strong implications for premium, but we'll flesh that out over the course of the video. So as the way I normally do this, I talk about the first skill and kind of flesh that out, and then I talk about the second skill and I flesh that out, and then I give my overall thoughts and opinions after that. For the first skill, it was one of my predictions when I made my Master of Force video that Ryzen would probably be able to generate both Force 1 and Force 2 at the same time. So in that regard, I'm very happy that I was correct. There was no way I could have predicted the second skill, but at the very least, I'm very happy that he can generate both forces at one time, which means that every attack on that circle gets plus 10k power and plus an additional critical, which means that a lot of, in both premium and in standard, like it opens up a lot of aggression for spikes and being able to put the pressure on the opponent to maybe either guard an attack or just take the damage, and which opens up the ability to finish your opponent off sooner rather than later, which is very, 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 very good for spikes to have the ability to do that. And a couple of ruling things that I want to talk about real quick is that since you generate both Force 1 and Force 2 at the same time, you should be able to, unless Bushiroad says otherwise, but the way that it's been played up to now, you can independently place the force markers in different spots. They don't have to go onto the same circle if you choose not to. So you could put Force 1 on your rear guard, you could put Force 2 on Vanguard, so you have Ryzen have a critical throughout the course of the game, unless you shift it around with the second skill, which we'll get to later. And Bushiroad is going to have to come out with a Q&A or put it into the rules or something to clarify if you ride Rising first, when you declare when do you declare which force gift you're going with for the rest of the game, because the continuous means you get both of them at the same time. However, if you ride a different grade 3 over top of Ryzen and generate a force gift, is that when you declare you're going Force 1 or Force 2, or do you have to declare it as you ride Rising and then you get both forces anyway? And I've heard it argued different ways, so I think Bushiroad needs to come up with some type of clarification for it. The way I think it works is when you ride Rising, you declare you're going Force 1, then the continuous activates, and you get both of the forces anyway. And that's the way I think it's going to work. Ideally, that's the way it should work. But if it doesn't work that way, and Bushiroad is like, you choose if you ride a non-Ryzen grade 3, that opens up a lot of flexibility for spikes, because then you can get the applicable force gift that applies to the situation while already having this force 1, force 2 action going on. So that'd be excuse me, that'd be a nice little wrinkle for spikes to have going into the future. And I'm all about giving spikes any leg up that they can. So that'd be really cool to see. Obviously, in standard, being able to generate both force gifts is really strong and offers a lot of play possibilities, but it also has some implication in premium. And because of the way it works, in my mind, Ryzen is going to be your go-to force generate in Vanguard for the long haul, unless they come out with something that can generate both force gifts multiple times on one ride opportunity. Because being able to put both forces on one circle is very strong in the context of all your strides. So Agrius, you can attack multiple times with that plus 10k in the crit rear guard. With Hellhard 8, already Hellhard 8 was hard to deal with for your opponent with just one force gift, with Hellhard 8 giving plus 10k to every attacker. Now you get that, and you also are able to have an additional crit on top of that. So the idea that you would take the earlier swings to try to get damage triggers potentially becomes more dangerous, because now, if depending on the timing of that, it might mean you could die. Like if you have your opponent at 0 damage and 2 of them hit, they're now at the range that every hit after that can win you the game. And so they don't have the luxury of taking the damage to try to get a defensive trigger, or they have less of an opportunity to take a damage to get a defensive trigger if the next hit could kill them. So it opens up a lot of plays there. And obviously, of course, it's good with any future strides that spikes can get as well, unless they do something really funky going forward. And that's what I really enjoy about this first ability, just how much flexibility and play opportunities that it offers for the clan. And as for the second skill, it's really funny to see that that's the more interesting of the two skills. I saw a comment on the wiki saying the same thing, that being able to turn your front row or turn 2 additional grade 3s into having like 3 vanguards at one time is the more interesting case of the skill, and it kind of overshines the ability to get the extra force gift. But I think that's what's really cool about Ryzen, is that both skills are very interesting in their own right. And for the second skill, it in the future, well, the design of what Ryzen does with grade 3s means that every future grade 3 from here going forward is going to have some type of implication or not with Ryzen. So they're all going to have to be looked at to see if they can combine with Ryzen into the future, at least until Ryzen Nova is obsolete. But that kind of remains to be seen how long that will be, depending on how things go. But similar to Gear Groovy, it kind of impacted how strides were made for Gear Chronicle, and how they were made to specifically not be able to be combined with Gear Groovy. So it could potentially in the future restrict design space for Bushiroad for Spike Brothers grade 3s, unless they just don't care and choose to still make strong Vanguard skills that you can later then combine with Ryzen Nova. So I'm be intrigued going forward for every grade 3 that we receive to see if it could become a new armor attachment for Ryzen Nova, to see what he can become when you combine things together. It's like a cool little polymerization effect that anything you have, or contact fusion, like if you remember GX days, where like you can just combine random things together, see what you could get with it. And I think that's really cool. And he also makes grade 3 flooding not as bad as it used to be, because every grade 3 in hand could potentially just be called out onto the board to then become a new attachment for Ryzen Nova to have. And there are specific combinations of things you want to consider looking into, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And Dexter and Rorna are able to help you enable getting the pair that you want on the board to be able to be combined with Ryzen Nova, and it kind of helps you give you that combo, like give you that combo redundancy, because you can naturally draw it, or you can be able to search it out with Rorna, or you can be able to search it out through Dexter. So having multiple ways to be able to get your specific grade 3 combo for the particular turn in question becomes more and more consistent as more cards come out to help support it. And I think that's really cool. And notably, if you have a lot of extra Rising Novas in your hand that you don't want to ride next turn, you can put it on your board, and then you can use Dexter's on place ability to absorb it and then call out the pair that you want. Or if you just have some throwaway extra grade 3s for that matter as well. Now, I imagine this is the moment you've been waiting for, is me talking about the different combinations of pairs you can put together to be most beneficial when combined together. And I'm going to talk about standard first because there's more applications there, and then I'm going to talk about the premium side of things briefly. So in standard, in my mind, there's 3 ideal combinations, and then there's like some interesting ones you can put together for different decks. But the main one that I've been talking about in my Discord is combining Bull Spike with Spike Cyclone. That is the double rare that we received in the set that I talked about yesterday. And this particular combination means that it allows you to attack with additional crit for all your attacks thanks to Bull Spike passing your force markers around, because the Bull Spike side of things allows you to move all force markers on your board to the unit in question for an additional Soul Blast. So Soul Blast, or Soul itself, is going to become a resource you want to keep an eye on if you want to go a Bull Spike route. And on the Spike Cyclone side, it allows you to attack an additional time, so you have 4 attacks that turn. And through his continuous Vanguard ability to get power, it means Rising Nova gets plus 10,000 power just for Cyclone existing on the board and being a target for the skill. And that compounds in the future if you have more force markers on the board and you clone a Cyclone and you clone, attach, whatever terminology, we're going to figure that out, Cyclone's skill onto Rising Nova. And it's a very good early game ideal, or it's a very good early game pairing to have, because Bull Spike's on miss ability allows you to retire an opponent's rear guard and draw your card, which gives you the ability to attack 4 times, retire one of your opponent's rear guards, and draw a card while the attack could potentially have plus 10k in a crit. Is a very strong combo, and one that I've been looking into, and one that I think is going to be employed for the foreseeable future, unless another better grade 3 option comes out later. And the next duo I want to talk about is Double Cyclone. And with the way the skill works, if you have 2 Cyclones on the board and you choose both of them with Rising Nova's ability, he gets 2 instances of the ability to restand. So he kind of becomes a build your own perfect riser in that effect. So for Counter Blast 2, you can restand 2 of your rear guards. So this is very good for late game pushing, and ideally you ride a second Rising Nova in the same turn. So then you have 1 double force on one side and 1 double force on the other side, and then every rear guard attacks for plus 10 in the crit, and then they can restand and do it again. And that's going to be really potent for pushing either while your opponent's at 4 damage or at 5 damage to try to end the game that way. And in my mind, it's going to be the go-to finishing sequence late in the game for spikes. And it's not super difficult to enable Double Cyclone with the ways to search it out, like Rorna and Rorna, Dexter, Gyro Slinger, which does it for free and adds a soul, which might be relevant depending on the timing of when you do this. And just a lot of ways to help you enable that. You have Wonder Boy to put dead copies back into your deck to be searched out with Rorna, Dexter, etc. A lot of combo pieces coming together there. And if you clone Double Cyclone, it means that your Rising on Vanguard gets plus 20k, assuming you rode an additional Rising Nova on top of the one that's already on your Vanguard circle. Or, sorry, he gets 2 instances of the continuous ability. So if you have 2 on the board and you have 2 force markers, then you get plus 20k. If you ride again and you have 4 on the board, he gets plus 40k. So it kind of doubles up the continuous ability that way. The next pairing I wanted to talk about is Double Bull Spike, which people in my Discord have been talking about. And similar to Cyclone, Double Bull Spike also doubles up. So if you have an attack that misses on a force marker, you can retire 2 and draw 2, which is very nice if your opponent tries to damage deny you, because in this case, Bull Spike, he only costs a Soul Blast to move your force markers around, and Ryzen's ability to clone or copy also only costs a Soul Blast. So if your opponent tries to keep you with no counter blast to function, then you can go the Bull Spike route and be able to gain some advantages while your opponent feels pressured to then give you counter blast. Then you can go into a Bull Spike, Cyclone, or double Cyclone play after that. And similarly, they also get +10 in the crit if you choose to move your force markers around throughout the course of the turn. And then those are the main 3 I wanted to talk about. There are some other potential combinations like Cyclone and General Safe Read, which means it gives Ryzen Nova the ability to on hit, retire, and restand in another rear guard. The issue there is that Soul becomes kind of more difficult because General Safe Read's on hit to restand and retire is 2 Soul. So you need to be able to find ways to replenish that after that if you're trying to go for like a Bull Spike play after that. And since you clone General Safe Read, that means you have access to his ability to counterblast and absorb a card into Soul to then call something else out, which means you can look for Rabbit that I talked about yesterday to be able to attack from the back row. You might maybe want to enable like a detonate barrel, something like that. Depending on what your deck is encompassing, it allows you to have multiple instances of your go-to Vanguard while letting it exist on the board as a rear guard. And it's very cool for that, and I really do enjoy that. On the premium side, trust me, I looked through all the Spikes grade 3s, and there really wasn't a particular combo that I thought was good that was worthwhile to talk about outside of one that was brought to my attention from Yellow Card Vanguard. So shout outs to Ben for sharing this with me on Twitter. And it involves Deadly Emperor and Bloody Ogle, because the fun part about adapting the Vanguard abilities, you get all of them, which means you are then able to Legion with your Bloody Ogle with the Frozen Ogle in your deck through Ryzen Nova, which means Ryzen then exists on the board to have inherited both Deadly Emperor's ability to counterblast 2, put 2 from your hand into the Soul to call 2 cards out, and then you you inherit Bloody Ogle's ability to have all your attacks gain plus 5,000 power for the duration of the turn, and then after they swing, they go back to deck. And he shared this particular combo that's very high rolly, but it allows you to enable like 11 attacks or something like that because of what it offers. But it's very high rolly, very hand intensive to do it. So I might explore it in premium once things are fleshed out, but I might let Ben handle that himself because he's the premium head around here. But that's one of the quick little things I wanted to talk about for premium. Like outside of that particular combo in premium, you're gonna be more focused on Ryzen doing his thing by generating just the double force marker for you. Notably, you can combine it outside of combining Vanguards together. It does become a good target for the bad end double ride, break ride sequence, because if you call out 2 new Ryzen Novas, you then get the double continuous ability because they both superior ride on top of your bad end dragger. So then you give double force on one side, double force on the other side, and then you get the break ride ability on top of that if you go with OG bad end dragger, or you get the ability to call out 1 from the Soul if you have new bad end dragger, but you still get the ability to have the +10 and the crit from the force markers being placed, and that's something you want to keep in mind as well. There's gonna be a lot to explore. It's gonna be a lot to explore with Ryzen Nova because of all the implications that it has, and I can't wait to really dive into it once I have the time to. And before I wrap up, a ruling thing that I wanted to talk about real quick is how Ryzen interacts with the Cradle Marker from Mega Colony. And since the Cradle Marker makes the unit attached to it lose all their abilities, you then can't inherit that ability onto Ryzen Nova because the ability does not exist. So keep that in mind while you're playing against a Mega Colony opponent, that you might want to have a Dexter on hand, because you place Dexter down, you can use the skill to reset a grade 3 by absorbing it into Soul, and then you can call out 2 additional ones. it means that since it goes to the soul and it's not retired, it doesn't trigger the critical marker for that one. But then you can call over the other one and reset it, and your opponent does get the critical marker that way. But you still are enabling your Ryzen's ability to copy some skills while also being able to deny your opponent at least a card in the process. And yeah, I think that's the last thing I wanted to talk about. I'm sure I didn't cover everything at all, but that remains to be seen as more comes out for the clan in VBT 10. And I think Ryzen is an incredible card. Like, I think it's a really good card, but it's also a really interesting card, and those are my favorite cards to try to tinker and experiment with. And I can't wait to get my hands dirty and test it out going into the future. But that'll do it for me. Let me know what you think about Ryzen Nova down below. I can't wait to see what crazy things people try to come up with in playtesting or in the comment section down below. And I'll catch you next time. Peace. Be easy.
Listen.